Video game developers love sequels. Absolutely love them. Prequels, though, are another story, but I've still encountered some good ones. The trend, though, with those prequels is to do them right after the game they are prequelizing. That is definitely a word. Examples I can think of include Fire Emblem Blazing Sword after Binding Blade, or Tales of Berseria coming right after Tales of Zestiria. Rare is the prequel that comes into being significantly after the original game. But of course, why would I be talking about this specific scenario if it wasn't exactly the case for Ys Origin? Ys Origin is part of the Ys series, a video game series of action RPG games developed by Nihon Falcom, also known as the Gods of RPGs, at least by me. The game was first released in Japan for PC in 2006, and then found its way west in 2012 thanks to Xseed. Since that initial release, it has been ported over to the PS4 and PlayStation Vita in 2017, and then the Xbox One in 2018. I did imply the game came out significantly after the original game, and for those of you who were around for my Ys 1 and 2 video, you might have already figured it out, but Ys Origin came nearly 20 years after the original release of Ancient Ys Vanished in 1987. Previously, the Ys series had only produced games that came after the events of Ys 1 and 2, but Ys Origin changed that along with several other standards of the series at that point. The game got decent reviews, and for sales numbers, it seems it did pretty well on sales with several 100,000 copies sold. Good for them. But enough about the past, let's talk about the game. In a moment, after I do a quick warning. Spoiler warning, this video discussing Ys Origin is not spoiler-free for Ys 1 and 2. Like Ys Origin itself, this video will reveal things that are not revealed immediately to players in the aforementioned games. If you want to avoid those spoilers, I suggest checking out my video on Ys 1 and 2 instead. This message was brought to you by me, because I don't like it when people tell me spoilers, so I try not to do that for others. Without further ado, let's talk Ys Origin's plot. Ys Origin is set 700 years before the events of Ys 1 and 2. The opening narration tells players about how the land of Ys became basically a floating island above the main landform below. The goddesses Fina and Rhea used the power of the Black Pearl to lift the land of Ys up into the sky in order to get away from the sudden onslaught of demons. This act did not deter the demons though, as they built a tower called the Dharm Tower to extend the battle into the skies. The events of the game start off with the sudden disappearance of the goddesses without a word to the 6 priests who helped rule the land of Ys. It is deduced that they went down to the surface for reasons unknown, and a party is organized to follow them to the surface. It is determined early on that the goddesses must be inside the Dharm Tower, and the party seeks out to find them. They aren't the only ones doing so, though. The biggest difference between Ys Origin and all the other Ys games is that you cannot play as Adol Kristen, because of course you can't, since this is nearly 700 years before his time. Instead, at the beginning of the game, you get a choice between 2 characters. Yunica Tova, the granddaughter of one of the 6 priests who wields an axe and unlike most of the Ys people, has no innate magical ability. And Hugo Fact, a magician from the prominent House of Fact who fights using magic missiles from his staff and the so-called Eyes of Fact. There is also one secret character you can play as who you unlock if you defeat the game with either Yunica or Hugo, but I won't spoil who it is. Their path, though, is considered the canonical path leading into Ys 1 and 2. In addition to very different fighting styles, Yunica and Hugo also have remarkably different personalities. Yunica is cheerful, sociable, and a bit naive, whereas Hugo is curt, abrasive, and cynical. This contrast in personality helps make each of their paths unique because they react to similar events differently, and enemies and allies have distinct relationships to them and thus different reactions to their actions. There is, however, one major similarity between these 2 characters that helps set up a connected arc for the game. Both characters are out to prove themselves, to their colleagues, families, and themselves. They both come from families with a lot of history in Ys and have immediate family members celebrated by the larger Ys community that they feel pressure to live up to. The way Yunica and Hugo go about dealing with this family legacy is true to their personalities. but this mutual struggle was a clever way Falcom and Xseed used to set up continuity between the two paths you can take at the beginning of the game. While the East series compared to the Trail series is not nearly on the same scale when it comes to storytelling and writing, the storytelling that happens in between all the fighting and tower climbing is solid. East Origin tells a good story with many little nods to the first two games, such as the ruse, the necklace to protect from traps, and many more. It even helps sometimes gameplay-wise to remember details from East 1 and 2, as it may help you realize the solution to a puzzle that is a little more obtuse without that prior knowledge. This game's story can still stand alone very well. However, my gameplay experience was certainly enhanced because I played the first two games before this one. While saving Fina and Rhea is, of course, important, what we all know, though, is that no East game is complete without an intense, fast-paced gameplay system. I think East Origin delivers just that. The gameplay is standard hack and slash, no more bump combat like the first two games. Unica has some unique combos you can do with her attacks and jump movement commands, which are helpful but certainly not necessary. It is a very simple set of commands you need to understand then. You have the standard attack, then there are 3 special skills, a wind skill, lightning skill, and fire skill, which are unique for each of the characters. As characters battle, they fill the boost meter, which when activated gives your hero a boost for quicker, more powerful attacks and stronger skills. Over time you can unlock even more abilities, but these just add on to either the standard attack skills or the boost system. Otherwise though, progression happens in 2 ways when it comes to equipment and skills. The main way your weapon is upgraded in East Origin is through Claria Ore, a special metal that can be used by a skilled magician to enhance weapons. Thankfully, one of the members of the retrieval team has that skill for use, and luckily as well, the Ruse are very generous with giving Claria Ore if you give them something they would like. Food. They want food. Go get them some Rhoda fruit. On the other hand, for most other skills and equipment, the SP currency that you collect as you battle and defeat enemies allows you to purchase upgrades at the goddess statues that litter the tower. This can range from upgrading boots and armor to giving boosts to item pickup rates or even movement speed. These upgrades give good boosts, although not indispensable ones, at least at the normal difficulty. So you can grind for all of the upgrades if you so wish, but if you are more grinding averse, you'll still be able to advance and beat any of the bosses set against you without all the upgrades. Before taking on any tough battles, though, I recommend saving. And where do you save? At the goddess statues, of course, which serve 3 purposes: upgrading skills and equipment, providing a save point that also heals up your character, and finally as a point you can teleport between as you advance up the tower. If you wish to revisit an area, then you can use the crystal you're given in the early game and teleport to any previously visited statue. The statues are very helpful throughout the game. I know some people do challenge runs where they ignore all the goddess statues, but they just make the game a whole lot easier and more enjoyable, so there's no way I was passing them by. As for enemies, there is a huge variety that you'll face in each one of the areas. They present unique difficulties and require different tactics to overcome, and yes, I'm talking about the generic enemies. I think they were extremely well thought out and challenging without becoming overly hard to face. I think the enemy design was expertly done, and the bosses were pretty good at maintaining that balance of offering a challenge without feeling unfair. So long as you understood the boss's patterns and weaknesses, the only thing holding you back would be your personal skill as a player, or in some rare cases, the level of your character, in which case grinding a level or 2 will solve that issue. The bosses also manage to be distinct between each other, and the best way to defeat them won't always be charging in guns blazing. Sometimes you'll even have to switch tactics mid-fight to adjust to the boss's new abilities. On the whole, the enemies and bosses are excellent and worthwhile trials. Now for the important aesthetics. It is very easy to see the similarities between East Origin and the Trails in the Sky trilogy. Specifically, Trails in the Sky 2nd chapter and East Origin came out in the exact same year in Japan, and this is just a classic style that I highly enjoy. This goes from character and enemy models to the varied backgrounds and environments. That brings us to the soundtrack, which is generally well thought of, and I do agree, although I would certainly stop short of the masterpiece that some people attribute to it. The game has amazing tracks for the battle, boss, and character themes, and even can do some nice quieter pieces for in between the action. There's pretty much no voice acting in the game. I say pretty much because there is an opening narration, but it is in French, and from what I've been told, not all that good French. It's short though, so it certainly doesn't alter any opinions on the overall aesthetic for the game, which is quite good. Ys Origin was a very good follow-up to Ys 1 and 2. The gameplay was vastly different, but the feeling of mowing down enemies on the way to some tough bosses remained for the most part. Origin definitely requires more of a time investment, as Dark Tower has far more complex floors now than it will in 700 years, especially if you want to complete the game with 2 or all 3 of the characters. However, the game did a good job avoiding any slow sections of the game by keeping the action going up until the end and telling a pretty nice story. Ys Origin maintains my interest in continuing to play through the Ys series, which means that the next target on my list, since I'm playing in story order, is Memories of Celceta. We'll see how that goes, but if you haven't gotten the chance to play Ys Origin yet, I highly recommend it for any action RPG fans or Falcom fans in general. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, comment below any thoughts, share the video if you know people who would like it, and subscribe for more Ys and video game content. I hope to see you all next time. Have a great day, and happy gaming!